Why does a single piece of land ignite millennia of strife? The Israel-Palestine conflict, a saga woven through time, is no ordinary dispute. It's a clash where divine promises collide with human ambitions, where faith and politics entangle in a struggle that shapes history. For Christians, this is a spiritual war, rooted in ancient prophecies that pulse with divine intent. For politicians, it's a battle over borders, identity, and power, etched into the modern world's fault lines. Yet, no matter the lens, spiritual or earthly, this conflict remains one of humanity's most enduring enigmas. Today, we embark on a journey to unravel its origins, diving into the biblical narrative of Abraham, the patriarch whose story sets the stage for this profound rivalry. Imagine a promise so powerful it binds two peoples to the same soil, like two rivers converging at a single point, destined to clash. In Genesis, God speaks to Abraham, pledging the land of Canaan to his descendants, a covenant that sparks both hope and division. This isn't just a tale of ancient texts, it's a living story that echoes in today's headlines, from Jerusalem's sacred stones to the cries of displaced families. We'll explore how this divine promise, intertwined with historical events, fuels a conflict that feels as old as time itself. Picture a family feud, not unlike one you might hear at a reunion, where two branches claim the same inheritance, except this inheritance is a land promised by God, revered by millions. By tracing Abraham's legacy, we'll uncover how his story lays the foundation for a struggle that's both celestial and terrestrial. Join us as we delve deeper than ever, connecting ancient prophecies to the modern-day tensions that grip Israel and Palestine. Every conflict has a beginning, and this one starts with a promise, a divine vow that still shapes destinies. From that ancient promise to Abraham, a divine spark ignites the heart of the Israel-Palestine conflict. In Genesis 12, 1-3, God calls Abraham to leave his home for a new land, Canaan, vowing, "I will make you a great nation, and to your offspring I will give this land." This covenant, like a seed planted in fertile soil, grows into the Jewish claim to Israel, reaffirmed through Abraham's son Isaac in Genesis 17:19-21, where God declares Isaac's line as the bearer of this sacred inheritance. Picture a family heirloom, a cherished deed passed down through generations, binding the Jewish people to this land with an unbreakable thread of faith. Yet the story deepens with complexity, as Ishmael, Abraham's other son, born to Hagar, receives his own divine blessing in Genesis 16:10-12, promised to father a great nation. A promise from God ignites an eternal claim, binding faith to earth in an enduring struggle. The divine blueprint of Abraham's covenant splits into two paths, like a mighty tree branching in opposite directions. From this sacred promise, Abraham's sons, Isaac and Ishmael, forge an ancestral divide that echoes through millennia. In Genesis 17:19-21, God designates Isaac as the heir of the covenant, his lineage blossoming into the Israelites, the Jewish people who see themselves as the chosen stewards of Canaan. Imagine a single torch passed to one child, its flame illuminating a path to a promised land. Yet Ishmael, born to Hagar, is not forgotten. God's blessing in Genesis 16:10-12 anoints him as the father of a great nation, traditionally linked to the Arab peoples, including Palestinians. Picture two families, each holding a map to the same treasured estate, both convinced their claim is divinely ordained. This split births competing narratives of inheritance, with Israelites tracing their right to the land through Isaac's covenant, while Palestinians, tied to Ishmael, assert their own deep-rooted connection to the same soil. It's like two neighbors disputing the boundary of a shared garden, each wielding ancient deeds written in sacred ink. The biblical text prioritizes Isaac's line for the covenant, yet Ishmael's descendants carry their own divine promise, fueling a rivalry that transcends mere geography. This division isn't just about land, it's about identity, faith, and a sense of divine destiny. For Jews, Isaac's legacy is a sacred mandate. For Palestinians, Ishmael's blessing anchors their heritage. As these narratives clash, they weave a tapestry of endless rivalry, each side seeing the other as challenging their God-given right. This ancestral split, born from two sons, sets the stage for a struggle that continues to shape the heart of the Israel-Palestine conflict. Two sons, one land, endless rivalry. Their legacies fuel an eternal contest. The eternal contest sparked by Isaac and Ishmael's legacies finds its anchor in the unyielding promises of Scripture. God's covenant with Abraham, first spoken in Genesis 12, is reaffirmed through Moses and David, declaring Canaan an everlasting inheritance for Israel in Genesis 15:18-21. Picture a sacred contract, etched in divine stone, binding the Jewish people to this land across centuries, like a lighthouse guiding a weary traveler home. This promise, reiterated in the Torah, extends beyond Abraham to Moses, who leads the Israelites to the edge of the promised land, and to David, whose kingdom cements Jerusalem as its heart. Yet the story deepens with prophetic visions in Ezekiel 37, where dry bones rise to life, symbolizing Israel's restoration after exile, a vision many see fulfilled in 1948, when Israel emerged as a modern state after nearly 2 millennia of dispersion. Isaiah 66 echoes this, foretelling a time when Israel's scattered children returned to their ancestral home, a beacon of hope amid persecution. Imagine a family, long separated, reuniting on ancestral soil after generations of longing, their identity inseparable from the land itself. For Jews, these promises are not mere words, but a divine mandate, anchoring their claim to Israel as a sacred trust. The 1948 establishment of Israel, rising from the ashes of the Holocaust, is seen by many as God's hand fulfilling Ezekiel's prophecy, a testament to the enduring power of Scripture. These biblical assurances shape Jewish identity, weaving faith and land into an unbreakable bond. As we trace these promises, we see a narrative that transcends time, linking ancient texts to modern nationhood. The conflict over this land, rooted in these divine vows, is more than territorial. It's a clash of destinies shaped by God's Word. God's Word shapes a nation's destiny, forging a claim that echoes through time. The divine vows shaping Israel's destiny meet a parallel claim, as Palestinians anchor their identity to the same sacred soil. Tracing their lineage to Ishmael, blessed by God to father a great nation, and to the ancient Canaanites who tilled this land long before, Palestinians see Palestine as their ancestral home, woven into their cultural tapestry for centuries. Imagine an old olive tree, its roots deep in the earth, each branch a generation that has lived, loved, and died on this land. Its fruit a testament to enduring ties. These roots run through villages, markets, and mosques where stories of heritage are passed down like cherished heirlooms. This connection challenges the Jewish narrative, creating a clash not just of claims, but of hearts bound to the same hills and valleys. Picture two artisans, each crafting a mosaic from the same stones, each believing their design is the true reflection of the land's soul. For Palestinians, their claim is not merely historical, but visceral, a lived experience of farming the fields, building homes, and praying under the same sky as their ancestors. Their presence in the region, from ancient times through Ottoman rule, forms a continuous thread, unbroken by the tides of empires. This heritage, rich with traditions and memories, stands as a counterpoint to the biblical covenant, asserting that the land belongs to those who have nurtured it across generations. The conflict, then, is not just about divine promises, but about human stories etched into the landscape. As we explore this Palestinian claim, we see a people whose identity is inseparable from the soil, their history a mirror to the Jewish narrative, reflecting a shared yet divided love for the same land. History binds both to the same soil, each heart claiming the pulse of Palestine. The shared love for Palestine's soil, pulsing in both Jewish and Palestinian hearts, sets the stage for a new chapter in the late 1800s, as a spark of hope ignites amid despair. Theodor Herzl, a Jewish journalist, births the Zionist movement in 1897, driven by centuries of persecution. Pogroms in Eastern Europe and Russia that left Jewish communities battered and yearning for safety. Imagine a weary traveler, fleeing a storm, seeking a haven where their children can live free from fear. For Herzl, Palestine was that refuge, rooted in the biblical homeland of the Jewish people. Under Ottoman rule, Palestine was a vibrant mosaic, home to a predominantly Arab Muslim population, alongside smaller Christian and Jewish communities, living in relative harmony. Yet, Zionism's call for a Jewish homeland stirs ripples across this landscape, like a stone cast into a still pond. Herzl's vision, formalized at the First Zionist Congress, wasn't just a dream of return, but a response to existential threats, a plea for a sanctuary where Jews could reclaim their destiny. Picture a family, scattered by hardship, dreaming of rebuilding their ancestral home, only to find others already dwelling there. The Zionist movement, fueled by this longing, begins to draw Jewish immigrants to Palestine, planting seeds of tension with the Arab inhabitants who see their own heritage threatened. This isn't merely a clash of peoples, but of dreams. Zionism's hope for renewal against the backdrop of a land already alive with its own stories. The late 19th century marks a turning point as Jewish aspirations, rooted in ancient promises, collide with the reality of a populated Palestine. As we trace this movement's rise, we see the embers of conflict begin to glow, setting the stage for a struggle that will reshape the region. A vision of refuge stirs conflict's embers, as dreams of return meet a land already claimed. Dreams of return meeting a claimed land find a pivotal twist in 1917 as Britain's Balfour Declaration becomes a beacon and a betrayal that alters the course of history. Issued by Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour, this letter to Zionist leader Lord Rothschild pledged British support for the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, while vaguely assuring that nothing would prejudice the rights of existing non-Jewish communities. Imagine a landlord promising a new tenant a room in a house already occupied without consulting the residents, a gesture of goodwill that sows seeds of discord. This declaration clashed sharply with Britain's earlier commitments during World War I, like the McMahon-Hussein correspondence, where the British had assured Arab leaders of independence in exchange for their revolt against the Ottomans. For Arabs, it felt like a double cross, a colonial sleight of hand that prioritized one group's aspirations over another's sovereignty. Picture a handshake deal broken mid-gesture, trust shattered like fragile glass. Emboldened by this official backing, Jewish immigration to Palestine surged in the following decades, with waves of settlers arriving to build communities and purchase land, driven by Zionist fervor and the promise of a secure haven. Yet, for the Arab majority, this influx signaled impending displacement, evoking fears of being pushed from their homes like shadows fleeing the dawn. Tensions escalated into riots and unrest, as local leaders protested what they saw as an invasion masked as restoration. The Balfour Declaration wasn't just a policy shift, it was a catalyst, transforming Zionist dreams into tangible steps that ignited Arab nationalism and resentment. As we reflect on this moment, we uncover how a single document, penned in wartime strategy, reshaped fates, turning whispers of conflict into roars. Promises made ignite future strife, a declaration's ink fueling flames of division. The flames of division, kindled by the Balfour Declaration's ink, roared louder as Britain assumed control over Palestine after World War I, tasked with a mandate that promised order but delivered chaos. Under the League of Nations mandate in 1920, Britain was charged with governing a land already simmering with rival dreams, as Jewish immigration surged, fueled by Zionist hopes of rebuilding a homeland. Picture a crowded marketplace where newcomers arrive with bags of coins to buy stalls, while longtime vendors feel their space shrinking, their voices unheard. Jewish settlers purchased land, built communities, and laid roots, driven by a vision of return. Yet each transaction stoked Arab fears of dispossession, as the land's fabric seemed to shift beneath their feet. The 1920s and 30s became a cauldron of unrest, with riots erupting like sudden storms. Clashes in Jerusalem in 1929 and Hebron's bloodshed marked by mutual distrust. Imagine two neighbors, once sharing a courtyard, now glaring over a fence, each claiming it as their own. Competing nationalisms, Zionist dreams of a Jewish state, and Arab aspirations for self-rule collided openly, each side seeing the other as an existential threat. Imagine a shipwrecked survivor clinging to driftwood, desperate for a shore where they can stand unthreatened. This was the Jewish people's resolve after World War II, their eyes fixed on Palestine as the only refuge from centuries of suffering. The horrors of concentration camps, gas chambers, and systematic extermination left an indelible scar, fueling a fervent call for a homeland where Jews could live free from the shadow of annihilation. As the war ended, tens of thousands of Jewish refugees, many Holocaust survivors, streamed toward Palestine, their hearts heavy with loss, but alight with hope for a new beginning. Picture a weary caravan crossing deserts not just of sand, but of despair, seeking a promised haven. Yet their arrival clashed with British restrictions, as the Mandate authorities, pressured by Arab opposition, capped Jewish immigration to quell rising tensions. This sparked defiance as Jewish paramilitary groups like Haganah and Irgun launched attacks on British forces, demanding open gates for their kin. For Arabs, already wary of displacement, this influx felt like a tide threatening to sweep away their own foothold, intensifying their resistance. The clash wasn't just logistical, but existential, as each group saw the land as their salvation. The Holocaust's shadow didn't just propel Jewish determination, it deepened the divide, turning Palestine into a crucible of competing desperations. As we explore this pivotal moment, we see how tragedy amplified a quest for survival, pushing the conflict toward a breaking point. Survival demands a place of refuge, as pain forges an unyielding resolve. The unyielding resolve, born of tragedy, pushed Palestine to a breaking point, and in 1947, the United Nations stepped in with a plan meant to carve peace from chaos. The UN Partition Plan, unveiled in November, proposed dividing Palestine into two states, one Jewish, one Arab, with Jerusalem, a city sacred to three faiths, placed under international control. Imagine a weary mediator drawing lines on a map to split a cherished family orchard between estranged kin, hoping to quell their feud. The plan allocated 55% of the land to a Jewish state, despite Jews comprising only a third of the population and owning less than 10% of the land, while 45% would form an Arab state. Jewish leaders, led by David Ben-Gurion, embraced the proposal, seeing it as a foothold for their long-dreamed homeland, even if the fragmented territory fell short of their biblical vision. Picture a refugee offered a small plot after years of wandering, grasping it as a lifeline despite its limits. In contrast, Arab leaders rejected the plan outright, viewing it as a theft of their ancestral domain, a colonial edict that ignored their majority presence and deep-rooted history. To them, it was as if a stranger had been handed the keys to their home, leaving them with only the backyard. The plan, intended as a blueprint for peace, instead became a lightning rod, igniting fury and fear. Arabs saw it as an unjust partition, favoring a minority backed by foreign powers, while Jews saw it as a hard-won chance at sovereignty. The failure to reconcile these visions turned a diplomatic proposal into a prelude to war, as tensions erupted into violence even before the ink dried. As we explore this moment, we see how a map drawn in good faith deepened the chasm, setting the stage for a conflict that would explode into reality. Division on paper sparks real conflict, as a plan for peace births a battlefield. A plan for peace birthing a battlefield reached its crescendo on May 14, 1948, when David Ben-Gurion declared the State of Israel, a moment of triumph that unleashed a tragedy. For Jews, this was the dawn of a dream fulfilled, a phoenix rising from the ashes of exile and persecution, their biblical homeland reborn after nearly 2 millennia. Imagine a long-lost heir reclaiming a family castle, its walls echoing with ancestral songs of return. Yet, this same day marked the Palestinian Nakba, Arabic for catastrophe, as over 700,000 Palestinians were uprooted, their lives shattered like a village swept away by a sudden flood. Some fled in fear as violence engulfed their homes. Others were forcibly expelled by Jewish militias securing the new state's borders. Entire communities vanished, their olive groves and stone houses reduced to memories, as refugees poured into Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and the West Bank and Gaza. Picture a family clutching only what they could carry, leaving behind the keys to a home they'd never reclaim. The next day, armies from Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon invaded, launching the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, aiming to crush the nascent state. For Israel, it was a war of independence, a desperate stand for survival. For Palestinians, it was the deepening of a wound that would define their identity. The conflict's ferocity left scars on both sides. As battles raged across the land both claimed as sacred. By the war's end, Israel stood firm, but the Nakba's shadow loomed large, with displaced Palestinians scattered, their dreams of home now a distant hope. This pivotal moment, where one nation's birth was another's loss, forged two opposing narratives, one of restoration, one of dispossession. This wasn't just a physical uprooting, but a fracture of identity, as families carried faded photographs and stories of homes they could no longer touch. The Nakba became the cornerstone of Palestinian consciousness, a collective memory etched in annual commemorations on May 15th, Nakba Day, where grief fuels demands for justice and the right of return. Picture a child clutching a rusted key to a house long gone, vowing to reclaim what was lost. This right of return, the plea for refugees and their descendants to reclaim their ancestral homes, remains a cornerstone of the conflict, a non-negotiable dream for Palestinians and a point of contention for Israel. The refugee crisis persists, with millions living in camps or dispersed globally, their lives a testament to an unresolved injustice. The Nakba is more than history. It's a living narrative, a fire that burns in Palestinian hearts, driving their quest for recognition and statehood. As we delve into this tragedy, we see how displacement forged a resilient identity, forever tethered to a lost homeland. A catastrophe lingers in memory, its echoes fueling a people's unyielding hope. The unyielding hope of a displaced people, tethered to a lost homeland, faced a seismic shift in 1967, when a 6-day war redrew the map of the Middle East. Tensions had simmered since 1948, with Arab states, Egypt, Jordan, and Syria refusing to accept Israel's existence, their borders bristling with skirmishes like sparks before a wildfire. In May, Egypt's President Nasser escalated the crisis, closing the Straits of Tiran to Israeli ships, a chokehold on vital trade routes. Imagine a village gate slammed shut, trapping its people inside, as neighbors amass with sharpened blades. On June 5, 1967, Israel launched a preemptive strike, its air force obliterating Egypt's planes on the ground in a surgical blitz, securing air dominance. Over 6 days, Israel fought on 3 fronts, capturing the West Bank and East Jerusalem from Jordan, the Gaza Strip and Sinai Peninsula from Egypt, and the Golan Heights from Syria. Picture a chessboard where a single bold move sweeps away the opponent's pieces, reshaping the game entirely. This swift victory tripled Israel's territory, heralded as a miracle by its people, but it birthed a new reality: the occupation of Palestinian lands. The war's spoils included sacred sites and over 1 million Palestinians now under Israeli control, a shift that turned temporary triumph into enduring tension. For Arabs, the defeat was a humiliating blow, deepening their resolve to reclaim lost territories. The 1967 war wasn't just a military feat, it was a turning point that etched new lines of conflict across the region, transforming disputes over borders into struggles over sovereignty and identity. As we explore this moment, we see how a fleeting victory cast long shadows, igniting disputes that burn to this day. Victory expands borders, ignites disputes, as a 6-day war reshapes a region's fate. The long shadows of the 6-day war's victory reshaped the Middle East, casting a harsh new reality over Palestine's landscape. Israel's sweeping conquest in 1967 brought the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and over 1 million Palestinians under its military rule, transforming daily life into a labyrinth of checkpoints and restrictions. Imagine a vibrant town, once alive with bustling markets, now bound by barbed wire, its people navigating a maze where freedom feels like a distant memory. The occupation wasn't just a shift in control, it was a heavy yoke, altering the rhythm of existence for Palestinians, whose movements, livelihoods, and aspirations were curtailed by military oversight. As Israel solidified its hold, Jewish settlements began to dot the West Bank and Gaza, sprouting like new roots in contested soil. These settlements, viewed by the international community as illegal under international law, grew steadily, each one a brick in a wall complicating hopes for a Palestinian state. Picture a garden where one family plants new trees, claiming space, while another watches their own plot shrink, their dreams of self-rule fading. The settlements, often built on strategic hilltops, became flashpoints, intensifying Palestinian resentment and global condemnation. For Palestinians, the occupation meant daily struggles, families separated by barriers, farmers cut off from their fields, and youth growing up under curfews. These hardships fueled a sense of injustice, as the land they called home slipped further from their grasp. For Israel, the territories were a buffer, a security necessity born of survival instincts. Yet, this control deepened the divide, making peace negotiations a tangle of territorial and moral complexities. As we explore this era, we see how occupation stifled Palestinian dreams, turning land into a battleground of hope and despair. Control over land stifles dreams of freedom, as occupation forges a crucible of enduring struggle. For Palestinians, East Jerusalem is the envisioned heart of a future state, a symbol of sovereignty and heritage. For Israelis, the unified city is the eternal capital, inseparable from their biblical destiny. This dual claim transforms Jerusalem into a fault line, where every stone is contested, every prayer a claim to legitimacy. The 1967 capture intensified the conflict, turning a city of peace into a crucible of contention, as both sides see their dreams reflected in its ancient walls. The international community, viewing East Jerusalem as occupied, further complicates the struggle, with peace talks stumbling over its status. As we delve into this pivotal moment, we see Jerusalem not just as a city, but as a symbol, embodying the hopes and heartaches of two peoples locked in a sacred standoff. Jerusalem's heart beats with contention, a city's sanctity fueling an unyielding divide. Jerusalem's sanctity, fueling an unyielding divide, became a stage where global powers cast their shadows, amplifying the conflict through Cold War rivalries. As the sacred city stood at the heart of the 1967 war, the United States and Soviet Union turned Palestine into a chessboard for their geopolitical duel. The U.S., seeing Israel as a strategic ally against Soviet influence, supplied it with aircraft, tanks, and diplomatic support at the United Nations. Imagine a blacksmith forging a shield for a warrior, equipping Israel with tools to withstand its foes. American aid, including F-4 Phantom jets, bolstered Israel's air superiority, pivotal in its lightning-fast victory. Conversely, the Soviet Union armed Arab states like Egypt and Syria, providing tanks, artillery, and training to counter Israel's growing strength. Picture two rival coaches, each arming their team for a high-stakes match, with Palestine as the field. The Cold War's ideological clash, capitalism versus communism, infused the region with weapons and tensions, turning local grievances into a global proxy war. Egypt's blockade of the Straits of Tiran, backed by Soviet encouragement, was a spark that ignited the Six-Day War, while U.S. support emboldened Israel's preemptive strike. This superpower meddling wasn't just about military might, it deepened the stakes, as Arab defeats fueled humiliation and Israel's triumph strengthened its resolve. The involvement of global powers transformed a regional struggle into a broader contest, where every move echoed far beyond Palestine's borders. For both sides, foreign backing shaped strategies and outcomes, intertwining their fates with distant capitals. As we explore this era, we see how Cold War rivalries magnified the conflict, casting long shadows over a land already torn by sacred claims. Superpowers cast shadows over the land, turning a local struggle into a global stage. The global stage set by superpower shadows gave way to a surge of Palestinian resolve as the Six-Day War's aftermath kindled a fiery nationalism. The crushing defeat of 1967, with the loss of the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem, didn't break Palestinian spirit, but forged it like iron tempered in a furnace of adversity. Emerging from this crucible, groups like Fatah and the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, led by Yasser Arafat, rose to prominence, channeling grief into a clarion call for statehood. Imagine a community, their homes encircled by walls, finding strength in shared songs of freedom, their voices rising above the din of occupation. These movements blended armed struggle, raids, and guerrilla tactics with political advocacy, demanding recognition of Palestinian rights on the world stage. The occupation, with its checkpoints and curfews, wasn't just a backdrop, but a catalyst, galvanizing a people to fight for their identity and land. Picture a farmer, barred from his fields, planting seeds of resistance instead. Each act a step toward reclaiming dignity. Fatah's early operations and the PLO's diplomatic push in the United Nations marked a shift, as Palestinians refused to be mere victims of history. For them, the covenant God made with Abraham in Genesis 17:7-8, promising Canaan as an everlasting inheritance, is a divine anchor for Israel's claim, a vow as unyielding as a mountain against the ages. Imagine a sacred scroll, its words binding a people to a land believed to be God's eternal decree. This promise, passed through Isaac and reaffirmed to Jacob, underpins the Jewish connection to Israel, seen by believers as a divine blueprint unfolding in history. The 1948 establishment of Israel, rising after centuries of exile, is viewed by many as the fulfillment of Ezekiel 37's vision, where dry bones awaken to form a living nation, a miracle signaling God's faithfulness. Picture a barren field suddenly blooming with life, as if God's breath revived a long-forgotten promise. For these Christians, the conflict transcends earthly disputes. It's spiritual warfare, where opposition to Israel, whether from regional foes or global critics, challenges God's plan. The book of Daniel's tales of angelic battles over earthly realms inspire the belief that unseen forces stir the strife, with the land of Israel at the heart of a cosmic clash. This perspective casts the struggle as more than territorial. It's a battle for divine purpose, where every event echoes prophetic timelines. For believers, 1948 wasn't just a political milestone, but a signpost in God's redemptive story, linking ancient texts to modern realities. As we explore this lens, we see how biblical prophecy frames the conflict as a sacred drama, where faith and destiny intertwine. God's promise fuels enduring faith, casting the struggle as a chapter in a divine narrative. The sacred drama of divine promises, intertwining faith and destiny, finds its climactic stage in Jerusalem, a city cast as the epicenter of end-times prophecies. In Zechariah 12:2-3, God declares Jerusalem a cup that sends all the surrounding peoples reeling, an immovable rock that injures those who try to move it, foretelling a time when nations will converge against it in conflict. Imagine a lighthouse standing firm amid a raging storm, drawing all eyes and ships to its unyielding glow. Revelation 16:16 amplifies this, pointing to Armageddon, derived from Har Megiddo, a valley near Jerusalem, as the site of a final cosmic battle between good and evil. For many Christians, these ancient words pulse with relevance, as modern struggles over Jerusalem echo these prophecies. Picture a town square where every argument, every clash feels like a rehearsal for a grand eternal showdown. The 1967 capture of East Jerusalem, uniting the city under Israeli control, is seen by some as a prophetic milestone, aligning with Zechariah's vision of a city reclaimed yet contested. For believers, the ongoing tug of war, Israel's claim to Jerusalem as its eternal capital versus Palestinian demands for it as their state's heart, signals the unfolding of end-times events. The city's sacred sites, from the Western Wall to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, are not just stones, but symbols of a divine plan, where every dispute carries cosmic weight. Christians viewing the conflict through this lens see not just politics, but a spiritual battlefield where God's ultimate purpose for redemption plays out. Jerusalem's role transcends earthly borders, standing as the focal point of God's promise to return and reign. As we explore these prophecies, we see Jerusalem as more than a city. It's a divine stage where eternity's script unfolds. Jerusalem's fate echoes in eternity, its conflicts a prelude to a cosmic resolution. Jerusalem's cosmic role, a stage for eternity's script, collides with earthly efforts to forge peace, yet the dream of harmony remains elusive. The two-state solution, envisioning Israel and Palestine coexisting side by side, has been the cornerstone of diplomatic hopes, a blueprint for reconciliation. Imagine two neighbors, each sketching plans for their shared plot, unable to agree on where to draw the fence. Negotiations, from the Oslo Accords in the 1990s to Camp David in 2000, stumbled over intractable issues: Jerusalem's status, final borders, and the right of return for Palestinian refugees. For Palestinians, East Jerusalem is the heart of their future state, a non-negotiable claim to their spiritual and political capital. For Israelis, a unified Jerusalem is their eternal seat, rooted in biblical destiny. Picture a bridge, half built, its beams unable to meet as each side guards its foundation. The question of borders, whether to revert to 1967 lines or accept Israel's expanded territories, further frays talks, as settlements entrench a contested reality. The right of return, a demand for millions of Palestinian refugees to reclaim their 1948 homes, clashes with Israel's security concerns, deepening the impasse. Decades of dialogue, marked by fleeting handshakes and broken promises, have yielded no lasting peace, as both peoples cling to narratives of justice and survival. Palestinians see their dispossession as a wound demanding redress. Israelis view their state as a hard-won refuge against history's threats. The international community, advocating for two states, watches as hope ebbs, with each failed talk adding weight to division. As we explore this struggle, we see peace as a mirage, shimmering yet out of reach, in a land torn by sacred and human claims. Division persists where unity is sought, as the quest for peace falters on the altar of irreconcilable dreams. Can a land torn by dreams ever find peace? The Israel-Palestine conflict, a mirage of unity fading on the horizon, weaves a tapestry of biblical promises, historical wounds, and modern struggles that resonate across time. From Abraham's covenant, splitting destinies through Isaac and Ishmael, to the Nakba's scars and the 1967 war's seismic shift, this saga blends divine prophecy with human pain. Imagine a river fed by ancient springs of faith and turbulent currents of politics, carving a path through history's landscape. For Jews, the land is a sacred inheritance, fulfilled in 1948's rebirth, seen as Ezekiel's dry bones rising. For Palestinians, it's a homeland lost, their identity forged in exile's crucible, demanding return. The Zionist vision, Balfour's Pledge, and superpower rivalries turned a local feud into a global drama, with Jerusalem, a city of sacred stones, standing as its contested heart. Prophecies like Zechariah's cast it as the stage for end times, yet earthly talks falter over its fate, borders, and refugee rights. Picture two poets, each penning odes to the same city, their verses clashing in a duel of love and loss. This conflict, whether viewed as spiritual warfare or political deadlock, shapes global history, its ripples felt in headlines and hearts worldwide. It challenges us to reflect. Is it a divine plan unfolding, or a human tragedy unresolved? As we trace this timeless struggle, we're called to ponder its roots, biblical, historical, and modern, and its future, where hope and despair wrestle. Share your thoughts below. Do you see this as a spiritual battle, a political fight, or both? Subscribe to Deep Bible Studies for more insights into how ancient prophecies illuminate today's world, and share this journey to spark understanding. A conflict story calls for understanding, urging us to seek the truth beneath its enduring divide.